वन्दे गुरुपदद्वन्द्वम् अवाङ्मनसगोचरम् रक्तशुक्लप्रभामिश्रम् अतर्क्यम् त्रैपुरम् अहः विशुद्धिज्ञानदेहाय त्रिवेदी दिव्यचक्षुषे श्रेयः प्राप्तिनिमित्ताय नमः सोमार्धधारिणे नमो यामिनीनाथ रेखालङ्कृत कुन्तलाम् भवानीम् भवसन्तापनिर्वापण सुधानदीम्
सारस्वतसिद्धये शुद्ध सर्वोद्भावलसति वाच्यवाचकात्मा काश्मीरो जयति जगद्धितावतारः स श्रीमान् अभिनवगुप्तदेशिकेन्द्रः अमृतेश्वर्यम्बा समेत अमृतानन्दनाथ श्रीगुरुः सर्वकारणभूता शक्तिः.
So we were supposed to see the Dvādaśakālīs today. I'll try to make it as understandable, as intelligible as possible. Because at the outset, this subject is slightly, I will say, look, it's more of people who are adept and advanced in the yoga. They are the ones who will be able to make full sense of what this entire process is. Process is not difficult, but breaking the cognitive process into those 12 steps and to understand the difference between one step from the other. For that, we should have had the practice of being observant. Because for us, we know either 2 or maximum 3 stages of this entire process. That is a problem in understanding this conceptualization of Dvādaśakālīs. That is why this is called as the highest form of Śākta Yoga. See, Śākta Yoga was also known by another term, Kālīnaya. Naya means a path. Path to understand Kālī. Kālī here means one who performs the function of Kalanam, not calculation. Kalanam is not calculation. Normally, Kalanam means calculation. We will see that. So this entire path was called as, the Shakti Yoga path was called as Kālīnaya. So just to know briefly what it or from where does it originate. When we look at the works of Ācārya Abhinavagupta, such as Tantra Loka, and the commentary on Tantra Loka by Ācārya Jayarātha, we get a fair understanding about the origins of this particular system. He says that the first Ācārya who taught this Śākta Yoga or Kālīnaya was Śivānandanātha. This happened in the Mahāśmaṣāna of Karavīra. Karavīra here is not the Kolhapur. Karavīra Śmaśāna is a part of the Śāradā Maṇḍala, that is Kashmir. It is identified somewhere in the Swat Valley in the Afghan region. So this is called as the Karavīra Śmaśāna. And Karavīra Śmaśāna is referred in many texts where the great yogis and the yoginis would assemble, and this assembly produced quite a lot of interesting theories and concepts. And one such is this Kālīnaya. So Ācārya Śivānandanātha had 3 disciples. Interestingly, all the 3 were the yoginis. So one was called as Keyūravatī. The second was called as Kalyāṇikā. Third was called as Madanikā. So there were the 3 disciples of Śivānandanātha, and he taught them this Śākta Yoga. Kalyāṇikā had a disciple by name Ācārya Erakanātha. Why Erakanātha is important is because Erakanātha composed a short verse on these 12 Kālīs. This is called as Kramakeli. Stotra is called as Kramakeli. It's a short in Anushtup Chandas. But we do not know anything else or anything more about Ācārya Erakanātha apart from this. But the second yogini, that is Keyūravatī. Keyūravatī had a disciple by name Govindarāja. Now this Govindarāja is the teacher in the Krama system for Ācārya Somānanda. Now who is Ācārya Somānanda? Ācārya Somānanda is a very important personality when it comes to the Guru Parampara of the Trika, because when Ācārya Abhinavagupta, he learnt different Shastras from different teachers. And it is from Ācārya Somānanda he was initiated by Ācārya Somānanda in the Krama. So Ācārya Somānanda is the grand preceptor, actually, though a teacher, but he is also a grand, that is paramaguru of Ācārya Abhinavagupta. I'll tell you how he is a paramaguru also. This is recorded by Ācārya Abhinavagupta in his Tantra Loka. The entire Guru Parampara Prabhava is recorded. What happens is the Diksha Krama Ācārya Somānanda gives to Ācārya Abhinavagupta. At the same time, the methodologies, the textual traditions of Krama were taught by Ācārya Somānanda to Lakshmana Gupta, who is the teacher of Ācārya Abhinavagupta. So, in both ways, when it comes to the Dīkṣā Krama, he is his Guru. When it comes to learning the Shastra, he becomes his Paramaguru. And what is the individual contribution of Ācārya Somānanda? Ācārya Somānanda is the author of Śivadṛṣṭi. It's a very important text. Śivadṛṣṭi is the text which is attributed to Ācārya Somānanda. So it reaches Ācārya Abhinavagupta. And from Ācārya Abhinavagupta, it spreads the Apabhramsha or the Prakruta becomes popular all the way down south in Mahārthamañjarī. So Mahārthamañjarī is composed in Prakrit language, but the teachings are from this Krama system. In the sense, everyone refers to Kramakeli or being one of the earliest referral point on the Dvādaśa Kālī. But Ācārya Abhinavagupta has extensively dealt it in many places. He has done an exclusive Dvādaśakālī Stotra. He has done it in Tantra Loka. He has done it in Tantra Sadbhava. In all these places, he has given explanation for this. So, when we speak of Kālīnaya, because it is a great path, it is difficult to be practiced. It was also called as Mahānaya. So, Kālīnaya was also called as Mahānaya or Mahārtha. So, that is the explanation for the title of the work, Mahārthamañjarī, a compilation of the teachings of the Mahārtha system. So, what is this Kalanam? Because in each of the 12 Devata Namas, the term Kālī is added. So, what is this Kalanam that is attributed to Kālī? Kalanam here means the manifestation of Parasamvit in multiple forms. So, Kalanam means manifestation of Samvit in multiple forms. We will see what are those multiple forms also. So, what happens is, in this entire Śākta Yoga system, Devi is or Samvit is visualized in her 4 aspects. First aspect is as an absolute unitary principle, Eka Sadbhava, as an absolute unity. The second is one in many. The third is complete diversity. So, visualizing the one as an absolute unity, visualizing it in many, and visualizing it as many. So, these are the 3 functions. And each of these 3 functions, they also have one 4th stage, which is inexplicable, is what we say, the Anakhya stage. Anakhya is the all-pervading principle. And since it cannot be explained, it is called as the Anakhya. Akhya means to name, to call. In Anakhya, what we say is that we are unable to explain. That is why it is Anakhya. And this happens in Srishti, in Sthiti, in Samhara, and once again, in Anakhya or Anugraha. See, the terms are same. In the south or in other traditions, we use the Nama Pancha for the Panchakritya, Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, Tirodhana and Anugraha. Instead of Tirodhana and Anugraha, Krama will use Bhasa, Anakhya. Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara will be same. Instead of Tirodhana, it will be Bhasa. Instead of Anugraha, it will be Anakhya. So, each of these 4 in Srishti, in Sthiti, in Samhara, or as Srishti, as Sthiti, as Samhara, and as Anakhya. The first Anakhya, we cannot do anything. No, it's unnameable principle. So only 3 there. 3 into 4, 12. Why is Bhasa left out? Bhasa is the Prakasha. Nothing happens without the Prakasha. So Prakasha is that constant underlying principle. Therefore, Bhasa is also left out. This is how the 12 stages of cognition is explained through these Dvādaśakālī. So, what happens in Tirodhana? You are, though we say covering, nothing can actually cover the chit. It is not like you put a cloth on some object and you hide the object. It only means that the chit is not seen in its original form, but seen through the various vikalpas, which is superimposed on it. But for the vikalpas to be superimposed, the chit has to be constant. It has to be a constant factor. That is why Bhasa and Tirodhana are both the same. Bhasa is during the Pati Avastha, that is when you are approaching the Pati Avastha from the Pashu Avastha. Tirodhana is when we are approaching from the Pati Avastha to Pashu Avastha. Anakhya is there in both the Avastha. Anakhya is responsible for the next Srishti. So the Dvādaśa Kālīs, we will group them in 3 sets of 4. 3 groups, each group having 4. First group is called as Prameya Vargā. Prameya means object. This Prameya Vargā consists of Srishti Kālī, Rakta Kālī, Sthiti Nasha Kālī and Yama Kālī. These are the 4 Kālīs which come under the first group, which is the Prameya Vargā. I'll briefly explain these 4 and then try to explain each of it little more details. The reason is that you will understand the cohesion in a particular group when I quickly go on to the next, and then we will see each of it. So in the Srishti, that is when we call as a Srishti Kālī, obviously it is referring to the Srishti Avastha. And when we speak of Prameya Vargā, we are talking of the group of diversity, complete diversity. So here what happens is the Srishti, the Parasamvit herself feels and creates an object of cognition which is made to look separate from the cognizer. So here now we are able to understand why it is coming under diversity and why it is corresponding to the Srishti. So since the Kalana of Srishti is happening here, she is called as Srishti Kālī. The second is called as Rakta Kālī. Rakta Kālī is the object of cognition. It is nothing but the external manifest or the manifestation of the self seen as external. It is sustained because of an interest level which is generated towards that particular object. That interest level is called as Ranjanam, coloring. So the object is colored based on preferences, colored based on certain social conditionings and emotions. So because of this, there is a kind of an coloring is one, there is a kind of an attachment also, resulting in a sustenance of the experience of the particular object as distinct from oneself. First stage was referring to projection. Second stage is the sustenance of that projected image as different from oneself. So this stage of Samvit is called as Rakta Kālī because Rakta here means attached or colored. The third, Sthiti Nasha Kālī. Whatever it is, the experience has to come to an end. Even the best song, the best book, or the best image, after a point of time, the cognition has to cease. We are assuming that the time of cognition is very, very long, but there also, if you actually notice the practice, you will have to break it down to smaller chunks, where cognition is happening in smaller chunks in a continuous fashion, giving a sense of one single unitary cognitive act. Okay, this is like the differential functions. So, since the earlier object of cognition, it is now reabsorbed because of the end of that process. This Kālī is called as Sthiti Nasha Kālī. The earlier Sthiti, which was the Rakta, when that Rakti is coming to an end, she is called as Sthiti Nasha Kālī. So this will correspond to the Samhara aspect. So first was Srishti, second was Sthiti, the third is the Samhara aspect. She is called as Sthiti Nasha Kālī. The fourth Kālī in this group, in the Prameya Vargā group, is called as Yama Kālī. Yama means control. So at this stage, what happens is the object was projected and seen as different from oneself and then withdrawn back to awareness. At the time of withdrawing back to the state of awareness, there is a sort of a break. We apply a break. A break is applied by the consciousness to limit this because it knows that it has projected itself as an object. It had sustained the experience of the object and that has merged in oneself. Since after this, the application of a curve happens, only then the next cycle will again start. Bringing back to awareness is bringing the sense of objectivity as distinct from the subject. Merging that distinction of objectivity is what is bringing back. Since that niyamanam is happening here, she is called as Yama Kālī. Yama means to control. So this is the first group. Now the second group, so the first Kālī in this group is called as Samhara Kālī. Though the term is Samhara Kālī, it is referring to the Srishti Avastha only. How Samhara Kālī is similar to the Srishti Kālī of the previous set, with the difference being in this kind of conception, the object is not seen as distinct from the subject, but object is experienced as this. So I and this both are there, but this is not distinct from I. This is, or this will pertain at the Tattva level, if we have to understand, to the Ishvara Tattva level or Shuddha Vidya Tattva level. In both Shuddha Vidya Tattva and Ishvara Tattva level, Aham and Idam are there. Only thing is that Aham and Idam are experienced within Aham, but Idam is also experienced. In the first set, it was experienced as something outside. That is why this refers to one in many. Sorry, I should have used this thing. One in many. These three terms are nothing but Apara, Pārā-apārā, and Para. So Samhara Kālī. Okay, why is she called as Samhara? Samhara means here Samharanam, withdrawing the externality of this into the subjective field itself. That is the meaning of term Samhara in the nomenclature. The second Kālī in this set, she is called as Mrityu Kālī. Mrityu, process of knowing the appearance and the disappearance of the object, but without the object completely dissolving, but only returning to its source. This is called as Mrityu Kālī. I'll explain what it is. In the Samhara Kālī, Idanta is projected as non-distinct from Ahanta, but experienced as Idam. So this is the Srishti at the Pārā-apārā level. What is the Sthiti of the Pārā-apārā level? Sthiti of the Pārā-apārā level is to maintain that Idam without that Idam merging into Aham. Only then you will call it as Sthiti. What is status? Only when it is sustained, it is status or Sthiti. So maintaining that Idam within Aham, not allowing that Idam to completely dissolve into Aham. Since that happens, this stage of awareness or Sambit is called as Mrityu Kālī. The third, which will refer to the Samhara in the Pārā-apārā level, she is called either as Bhadra Kālī or Rudra Kālī. Both names, Ācārya Yeraka uses the term Bhadra. I think Abhinavagupta Acharya uses Rudra Kālī. Both these names are used for this particular stage. What is Bhadra and what is Rudra Kālī? It means the ability to transform the object, even if it is not present. Here also it is present only at a conceptual level. There is no physical object because we are talking about the Pārā-apārā level. So the ability to transform the experienced objects which are there as samskaras is called as Bhadra or Rudra Kālī. For example, if I have something in memory, to experience that object in memory, the object is existing in my memory, the memory without the object having to be physically present. For example, I can recall the taste of, let's say, something without even having to have that object touching my tongue. I'm recollecting. And each of these experiences which had left as samskara, the objects which are existing as such samskaras, they are also part of consciousness only, but they are not separate objects by themselves. In this Bhadra Kālī or Rudra Kālī stage, already the physicality is gone. And in mental state also, I and this, they are maintained as distinct. But since it is all happening within the sphere of I, this is not separate from I. The Bhadra Kālī refers to, or that state refers to, the capability of I. If I use past and all those things, that also will not be correct, because we are now talking about a stage where we have transcended time, where things are in the state of mere samskaras, also to be experienced as I only. That's what it is. All that which is merely in the form of memory. This is still happening in the Mashuddasha only. I invoked that Tattva thing only for understanding, that's all. The Bheda or the Pārā-apārā is happening at the Mashuddasha. Fourth one is called as Martanda Kālī. Martanda means sun. Sun is code for number 12. Why? Because there are Dvādaśa Adityas. This is called as Bhuta Sankhya. Kattapayadi reverse. From word you get the number based on the positions. It is Kattapayadi. In Bhuta Sankhya, it is by convention you get the number. If you say Veda, it will refer to 4. If you say Bhuta, it refers to 5. If it is Rasa, it is 6. Madhura, Katu, Lavana, Tikta, Kashaya. So when we speak of Surya or Aditya, it means 12 because they assigned one Aditya for each of the months. When they divided the year in the 12 months. So Martanda Kali means sun has no direct thing. It means 12. 12 is referring to the Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, the Manas and Buddhi. See, there are 3 Antakaranas, Manas, Buddhi and Ahankara. So Ahankara is kept for the next set. The Manas and Buddhi, totally 12. So Martanda Kali is where the group of these 12 organs of sensory perception, both jnana as well as karma. Because we assume that the karmendriya is not informing, but karmendriya also informs through the action. Though the function of karmendriya is not per se informing. For example, there is an act of drawing something called as an akunchana. Pani as an indriya does the akunchana. During this act of akunchanattva, you will be either informed of sparsha, touch of whatever you are drawing to yourself, or rupa, form of whatever object you are pulling towards yourself, or gandha, or any. So the act will also inform through the jnanendriyas. Normally, why I said this is, the karmendriyas are always kept outside the scope of information. It is only jnanendriyas and manas. So they will not usually bring that karmendriya inside that sphere at all. But here, the reason for calling it as Dvādaśa or Martanda Kālī is karmendriyas are also part of it because they are also participating in the act of information. So what does Martanda Kālī do? What Kalanam she does? She does the Kalanam of completely merging these 12 indriyas, including manas and buddhi, into ahankara. This ahankara is still the lower ahankara. Only the next set of 4 will happen for yogis. The first 8 we are all experiencing. So the next set of Kālīs, first is she's called as Parama-arka Kālī. Why? The 12 indriyas were called as Dvādaśa Adityas, which is the supreme sun. The Ahankara is the supreme sun. So that is called as Parama-arka. So in this stage, this corresponds to Srishti in the Pramātr Vargā subject. So here we will be speaking of unity. So Parama-arka Kālī. In the sense that the first level of descent from the unity consciousness is individual consciousness. And who gives this sense of individuality is Ahankara. So this Aham, the power by which the actual enlightenment of the Aham occurs, the lower Aham, not the higher Aham, of the Aham occurs, it tells us how the Srishti of the other stages had taken place. Without Ahankara, the previous 8 would not take place. So, knowing about this Ahankara, that is the 9th or Parama-arka Kālī. See, when we reach the 12th, we would have reached that Para. Gradually, we are dissolving external into internal. So, internal into the senses, senses into the Ahankara. Now, next we will merge the Ahankara into the cosmic Ahamkara. That is why it's called as Krama. There is a succession. It is not able to look outwards. That is why it is shown what it truly is, because there is no outside now. It has all merged. How will you look outwards through the sense? The senses have all merged into Ahankara. There is no way it will interact with anything outside. Samskaras have also been digested. So there is no samskara also to experience. There is no indriyas to have an experience. Only that Ahankara is there. To understand that this is Ahankara, that is Parama-arka Kālī. The next, that is Kālāgni Rudra Kālī, is the 10th, wherein this, or she is also called as Mahākālī, wherein this lower I is merged with universal I. That is why she is called as Mahākālī. It is sustaining the individuality, but not as an individual, but as a part of the universal consciousness. The next stage comes. This is called as Mahākāla Kālī. She dissolves even that universal identity. At that stage, there is no aham,
there's no time,
or even the conceptualization of aham at all. The it resting in I depending on it, all these things are like completely taken off the equation, both at the individual level and at the universal. So she is called as Mahākāla Kālī. After that, what remains is the 12th, which is nothing but Parasambhit in her purest form. So the 12th Kali is called as Mahabhairava Ghora Chanda Kali. And I like this name of all. There are three components. Maha, Bhairava, Ghora, Chanda, Kali. Maha refers to everything. Maha means everything. Bhairava refers to Pramāta. This is what we have seen. So Pramāta, Ghora refers to the Prameya objects. Chanda refers to the process of grasping the objects. That is Pramāna. So Bhairava is Pramāta, Ghora is Prameya, Chanda is Pramāna, where all Maha, all Pramātr, Prameya, Pramāna distinction is no longer there. She is called as Mahabhairava Ghora Chanda Kali. So this level, it is like
So
perfect.
that
After that, there is nothing.
Okay.
If you want, we can just go on adding, but doesn't make any sense because there are people who include a 13th and 14th and sort of. No, it is like what is Shodashi, then above Shodashi, Anuttara Shodashi, everything is that you want to call by different names, different functions. Go on and call.